Yankees shortstop Derek Jeter appears to be a shoo-in and could be only the second player behind former teammate Mariano Rivera to be elected unanimously. Then things get a little more curious. Slugger Larry Walker could make some headway on his 10th and final year on the ballot. Steroids-era players like Sammy Sosa, Roger Clemens, and Barry Bonds also waiting to see if they're getting a little more attention from voters. Curt Schilling is hoping to seal the deal after a steady increase in votes.
ABC's Ryan Burrow. New research finds smoking pot can be as bad for your heart as smoking cigarettes. Some of the toxic chemicals in tobacco are also in pot and can increase your blood pressure and heart rate, raising your risk for a heart attack. This is ABC News.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face, and there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at Zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
Welcome to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Another wonderful episode on Monday. This is where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I am your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife and producer, Janet. And today in the studio, we have Tosha Stafford. We will be talking with her about bariatrics. She's an expert in bariatrics and weight loss. We are at the AM 1470 KBSN studios in Moses Lake, streaming live on my Facebook and the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy YouTube. Also, if you have any questions or you'd like to be part of the show, please call in 509-765-1470. Tosha, welcome to the studio. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. So why don't you just start with telling us a little bit of history about bariatrics, because I'm not familiar with bariatrics. Some people explain about a little bit about that.
Well, bariatric surgery is where they reduce the capacity size of your stomach so that you eat less. There's different forms of bariatric surgery that can also reroute or shorten the intestines to shorten the path to digestion. It's very effective in obesity.
Okay, so there's a sleeve. There's also gastric bypass you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. There's different forms of surgeries. There's the gastric bypass. There's the lap band. There's the sleeve. There's the duodenal switch. The gastric balloon is now coming out.
Okay, so why would somebody seek bariatric surgery?
Many times, most people have a very difficult time losing the weight and keeping it off, or they are faced with diseases and various diseases from the obesity that they have to lose weight rapidly to help with their overall health.
Okay, so what are some of those diseases that they could have before having bariatric surgery?
They can have high cholesterol. They can have hypertension, diabetes, various diseases of the heart.
Okay, so is there something to qualify before having bariatric surgery? Is there something they have to qualify before they have some kind of surgery like bariatric surgery?
They do. Each doctor usually has their own qualification processes that you have to go through. In the States, they usually require 6 months of counseling services, psychological evaluations. You have to prove that, you went through 6 months of dieting on your own. They do a complete health panel on you, assess your risk, and then your qualifications to lose weight. They may require that you lose, 5-10% of your body weight before you're able to have the surgery.
Okay, so tell us a little about the history of your bariatric surgery.
So I was heavy set most of my life as a child, and at one point I tipped the scale at over 300 pounds, and I was in corporate America traveling all the time. I was heavy set, I had high blood pressure, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was traveling for my job to Boise, and I was approached by an Alaska airline representative, and they wanted me to buy another seat, and they questioned whether I would be able to fit on the airplane. And I knew at that point that I needed to do something about my weight, but I just hadn't done anything. I hadn't been consistent with doing anything, let's put it that way. And when she followed me onto the plane and made sure I could fit in the seat, that was enough for me. So I had decided, since my insurance did not cover bariatric surgery, I was at the point that enough was enough, and I needed to lose the weight. I needed to focus on my health, and so I opted to go to Mexico 3 weeks later and have my bariatric surgery.
Wow, that was fast.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have any disease states? You discussed that there's some disease states that can come about with being overweight. Did you have any disease states that before you had surgery?
I did. I had hypertension, so I was on medication for that. And I also have rheumatoid arthritis. And as you know, that also feeds on adipose tissue. And so I was flaring pretty much like every 2 months, living off and on prednisone quite a bit. That also increased my weight as well.
So after you had bariatric surgery, so 3 weeks later, that was your wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
You had bariatric surgery, and so if you don't mind sharing some of these personal details, so how old were you when you had the surgery?
So it's in 2013, so I'm going to be 7 years out. I was 36 years old at the time that I had decided to have it. I lost most of my weight all within the first year. I went about 140-pound weight loss, and I ended up rebounding and settling in about 120-pound weight loss.
Okay, so help us out with you're on medication for blood pressure, high blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And your blood pressure, did you get off the blood pressure medication after you lost the weight?
I did.
Because your blood pressure went away.
Yep.
Your high blood pressure went away. So
Mm-hmm.
what about the RA? Did the RA get better?
The RA did get better. So in 7 years, I've only really had to go on prednisone, I would say maybe 8 times. And before that, to be honest with you guys, I was probably on prednisone at least every other month.
Yeah, and of course, prednisone long term does not have great side effects for sure. So what I like about your story, and I think, and you'll have to help me. That's one of the reasons I wanted you on the show, is because there's you're not alone in this journey, and there's a lot of patients that have multiple disease states that could be helped if they just lost weight. So your RA got better, your hypertension got better. So tell us about that process of losing the weight over 120 pounds over a year period. Tell us about that process, and is most of it the first month, and how's that go?
Mm-hmm. So I had to lose, I think, about 18 pounds before my doctor would perform the surgery on me in Mexico. Before that, I had tried various diets. I had tried low carb, I had tried Atkins, I had tried Weight Watchers multiple times. And I got to the point that I would question myself and ask myself, why can't you just stick with a diet? Like, why can't you do this? You can do everything else in life. Why can't you diet? Why can't you lose it? And after I had bariatric surgery, and I had to let my stomach heal, of course, for the first 45 days. I really took a vow to change my life and to change the way that I was eating. And so the weight the first 6 months just fell off. You're in a drastic caloric reduction because of the capacity that your stomach can hold, and the weight just fell off. And I knew that I needed to get into the gym. But what I focused on for the first 6 months is really the nutrition part, and focusing on well-balanced meals, my protein first, making sure I was drinking my protein shakes. Then about the 6-month mark was when I started getting into the gym, lifting weights, and really just focusing on overall health. And then, 7 years later, here I am still continuing to do the same thing, and, now coaching, hundreds of bariatric patients to be successful in their journey.
So tell me a little about, you mentioned that you had to lose weight before you had surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a qualification So not everybody qualifies. So obviously you need to lose so much weight. But what if you need to lose too much weight? So you're saying sometimes some patients could be too heavy to do the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
So some patients, the heavier you are, obviously, the riskier the surgery is.
Right.
And in extreme situations, death has occurred. And so the doctors, each doctor is a little bit different, but they do want you to lose a certain amount of weight. And depending on what you weigh, you might have to lose a substantial amount of weight to have it done. It depends. I was a little bit over 300 pounds starting. My surgery weight was like 268, I believe. I had lost some weight before that. But patients that are, if you watch like My 600 Pound Life, some of them have to lose a little bit of weight to qualify for the surgery. Qualify. The heavier you are, the riskier the surgery is.
Right. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that, as an American, and this is not novel for me, this is not a novel statement for me. I was taught this by a doctor, and as an American, the most dangerous thing we could do every day as an American is to be overweight. And why do I say that? Because cardiovascular disease kills more people in this country than car wrecks, than cancer, than many things combined. So the most dangerous thing we can do is be overweight, because being overweight does attribute to diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol possibly, which has been linked to cardiovascular disease, which kills a lot of Americans. So, and is going up all the time. So, any way to lose weight, I think, is a good plan for patients. And sometimes we need to go to extreme measures like bariatric surgery. So, tell me a little bit you mentioned about being a coach. What made you do that? Did you do that right away? What made you be a coach for bariatrics post-surgery?
No, I was in corporate America, so I was actually a vice president of a bank. And I was in client development when I had my surgery. And somewhere along the line, my passion developed to help people. I realized that there was a need to really help people, help to reinforce what the doctor tells us to do after. But the problem after bariatrics is we all have surgery at different locations. I had mine out of the country. So I did not have the support system that some people in the U.S. might have if they've had it at their local hospital who has a big support group or system set up at that hospital. I unfortunately did not have that. So I recognized the need within about the first year, the need out there to really educate people around, macronutrients, their protein, their fats, their carbs, balancing, eating to a structure, following their doctor's orders, making sure that they're doing their annual lab work. And that's when I had decided to quit my job and start coaching.
Awesome.
It was a huge transition.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, tell us a little bit about, you mentioned you had yours done in Mexico. So tell us a little bit about why you chose Mexico.
So my insurance did not cover bariatric surgery, and at that time it was about $20,000, and I did not have $20,000 in the bank unless I put it on credit or took out a loan. So I had opted to go to the Obesity Control Center and have mine done in Tijuana with Dr. Ortiz, and all in all, it was less than half of the cost in Mexico. And I was very comfortable with my choice. He was one of the top surgeons. He educates all around the world. So I was very comfortable going down there to have the surgery done. My family, on the other part, was not. So my mom, who's an emergency room nurse, had to escort me and check out everything before I had it done. But, in the end, I would go down and have it done there in a heartbeat again. I loved the experience.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. So that looks like we can wrap this segment up. First segment up, we'll go to a commercial. You are listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. We'll be back in a jiffy.
At Confluence Health, we're dedicated to improving our patients' health by providing safe, high-quality care close to home, primary care, family medicine, acute care, and specialists, all working together to not only keep you well, but help you live your healthiest possible life. We call it whole person care, from folks you call your neighbors. World-class health care close to home. We're Confluence Health. Make an appointment or find your primary care physician partner in wellness online at confluencehealth.org.
Don't let harsh weather push you around in your own home. Eliminate hot and cold spots with the Carrier ductless system. As the name suggests, ductless systems give you control of your home's comfort without invasive ductwork, focusing on the hard-to-reach spaces that need it most. Bring home versatile and efficient home comfort. Carrier ductless. Carrier. Turn to the experts.
Call Basin Refrigeration in Moses Lake at 765-7138.
If you're looking for something to do on these long winter nights, don your furs, your pearls, your top hats, and your tails for the Rory 20s themed Moses Lake Business Expo. While you're there, stop by the Localtel booth and get familiar with all of the services a Localtel has to offer, like roaring fast fiber internet, your stream TV service with really cool features and phone services too. Learn about Guardian Services, security, surveillance, alarm systems, and more. And while you're there, enter to win great prizes. So put on your Ritz and join us on Tuesday, February 21st from 4 to 7 at the Commercial Pavilion at the Grant County Fairgrounds. How much does it cost if it's free? It's free. And if you can't attend, you can stop by Localtel at 223 East Broadway in Moses Lake. Call 707-7777 or go online at localtel.com. Fiber, internet, TV, phone, security, and a whole lot more.
Welcome back to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. You are with us live at the AM 1470 KBSN studios. We'd love to have you as part of the show. Please call in 509-765-1470. We have Tosha Stafford as a guest today. She is an expert in bariatrics and weight loss. And if you missed us the first segment, we were talking about some of her history and just the history of bariatric weight loss. And we're going to continue that. So, Tosha, we left off with surgery in Mexico versus local, and you're going to share some statistics about. Share some statistics that you know about bariatric surgery.
Well, currently, studies show that surgery reduces a person's risk of premature death by about 30 to 40%. Bariatric surgery also helps to resolve and improve more than 40 obesity-related diseases and conditions.
All right, let's just stop talking about that. So, you guys that have been listeners and viewers for a while with us, you know how important chronic disease is to us, and one of the things that changed mine and Janet's practice in our pharmacy was how chronic disease is treated in our nation. So think about that. 40 different diseases, from sleep apnea to diabetes to hypertension to high cholesterol, and it doesn't even stop there. Next month, we're going to have Dr. Shawn Baker he's the one that wrote the carnivore diet, and he's an orthopedic surgeon. And one of the things that he talked about that changed his practice was when he changed people's diets and had them lose weight, they didn't need surgery anymore. How many people get knee replacements, hip replacements, and they wouldn't need that, or they have foot problems? So think about this. I already mentioned how dangerous it is as an American to be overweight. Think about those disease states that you can eliminate if you lose weight. So go ahead, Tosha. Keep going.
Well, with bariatrics, most people typically lose the most amount of their weight within the first 2 years. Most of them lose as much as 60% within the first 6 months. So you're talking about drastically improving your quality of life within the first 6 months of surgery. Many, on average, have reached goal within the first year to 2. And after 5 years, the studies indicate that they have kept off 50% or more of their excess weight.
Wow, that's important. So talk about you talk about follow-up, and you didn't have maybe the best follow-up because you picked a out-of-country surgeon. So I'm assuming that's kind of what you're getting at, is that's why you started this coaching thing for bariatrics, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work?
So the whole reason that I founded BariFit was I recognized the need out there for a solid support system. There's many people that we're having surgeries all over the U.S. Now, Mexico is one of the top countries to go to for bariatrics, and there's other people have it in other countries. So the support network for bariatrics is not consistent. And so I recognize the need to really enforce the rules that we're supposed to follow. And so I have my master's in business, but I went on to get accredited and become a master coach through Precision Nutrition and founded BariFit to really reinforce the structure that bariatrics should be eating, because regain is so prevalent in our community. And then there's various foundations like Weight Loss Surgery Foundation of America, who has a huge support network that does an annual conference every year that that you can join and go to develop a support network and to develop really that system that I think people need in place to support their long-term journey, not just the first year or two. I'm talking about the rest of their life.
Yeah, we have to eat for the rest of our life, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you said some rules. You said, so to help patients follow some rules that they're supposed to follow. What are some of these rules you're supposed to follow after bariatric surgery?
So after bariatric surgery, we have to focus on our protein first. That's first and foremost. Every meal, every snack, it should really be protein focused. The other is, watching the carb intake. You should only be really eating, healthy, nutritious, smart carbs, not highly processed carbohydrates. And then really watching your fats, although there's lots of healthy fats, there's a lot of dangerous fats out there as well, is really just leading kind of that balanced life, not drinking 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after a meal, watching your alcohol intake, keeping it to a minimal, getting active. The most successful people do cardio on average at least 4 days a week for about 30 minutes.
Okay. So you said not drinking or drinking 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that.
So
that's new to me.
The 30-30 rule. So after bariatrics, your capacity of your pouch is limited, right? Your stomach. So for example, 80% of my stomach was removed. So when I'm focusing on drinking fluids, I have to focus on drinking fluids. And then I have to stop, I usually stop about 30 minutes to an hour before I eat so that I can focus on my food. Because if I'm eating and drinking at the same time, then I can't properly stick to a diet because the fluid is taking up the space in my stomach versus the nutrition that I should be eating.
Right. So,
and then if you're rerouted, if you've had bypass, then you don't absorb everything. So that's why it's so important to, really adhere to that 30-30 rule, that you're either focusing on your fluid intake or you're focusing on your nutrition intake.
Because basically it's a volume, because your stomach just can't handle that much volume.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for clearing that up and educating me. So tell us a little bit more about some of the things as far as macros and maybe nutrients that bariatric might be deficient in. What about some fat-soluble vitamins, things like that? Do you have any do you have some information for us on that? Okay.
So when I first had bariatric surgery, to be honest with you, I did not have an idea of what a macronutrient was. I knew what calories were. It was through, educating myself, also hiring my own personal coach, that I started macro dieting in the beginning. I hired him about a year after surgery, and I learned what macronutrients are. So macronutrients, you guys, are what equals calories. So protein is 4 calories per gram, carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram, and fats are 9 calories per gram. And that's what equals calories. In addition, we are required to be taking our vitamins. So a multivitamin, calcium, vitamin D. Some people have to take extra iron, magnesium, etc. But we are asked and ultimately required by our doctors and for our follow-up to do annual lab work to see if we are falling deficient in anything.
Yeah. And just for our listeners and viewers, so macronutrients like protein, carbohydrate, and fats, the vitamin D, B vitamins, calcium, those are called micronutrients. So macro and micro, just like it says. So is there a specific ratio of macronutrients as far as protein to carbs that you guys shoot for, or you just shoot for very low carb?
I personally believe in more of a balanced diet. About a 40-30 ratio, 40% coming from protein. There's bariatrics out there that follow more of a higher fat ketogenic lifestyle. There's some out there who just follow a high protein, low carb, low fat diet out there. There's various diets that different bariatrics follow. I think the most successful stay obviously within our caloric range. We're watching our caloric intake, getting active, and our annual blood work, checking on everything. Personally, I like a more balanced approach. I don't believe in really eliminating food groups.
Yeah. So what you talked a little bit earlier about smart carbs. Tell us what a smart carb is.
So your smart carbohydrates are your slow digesting, unprocessed carbohydrates. So like oats, yams, quinoa, things like that would be what we should be eating.
Okay.
Not like highly processed like white rice, white potato, breads. Breads tend to swell in the stomach, so we should really avoid those.
And so what about like fruits? Because fruits are not slow digesting necessarily, especially like a banana.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be a smart carb in this conversation?
You could constitute it as a smart carb. Bananas, obviously high carbohydrate,
Yep.
right? Berries, apples probably being among your better fruits. Bananas are okay, just higher carb. We should watch those because obviously bananas can be, what you think might be a 20 carb banana might be a 40 carb banana.
Yeah, exactly. So, and bananas do have a high glycemic index, so they can spike your glucose for sure if you're not burning it. And so you talked about calories, a caloric intake overall. How many calories should you shoot for a day?
So these will sound shocking to a lot that may not be active in like a bariatric community, but most doctors, kind of the common number out there is 800 to 1,000 calories a day. And I've seen other plans, they go up to like 1,200 calories a day after you've reached maintenance. The discrepancy comes when, as a bariatric, you've really transformed your life and got very active in the gym. Those people to power lift, to run marathons, to bodybuild may require, some more calories despite our capacity restrictions.
Right. So let's talk about that. So let's say, do you know of, or do you coach any, or do you know of any bariatric patients that have went to the surgery and they are some type of marathon runner?
A lot.
Okay, so with a small stomach like that, if they're burning, they could burn upwards, especially a male could burn 1,000 calories an hour,
Mm-hmm.
if they're doing intense exercise. So let's say they're burning 700 calories an hour. Can they meet the requirements by eating enough during exercise to do that with a decreased stomach capacity?
It's very difficult for them to do so.
Okay.
When you're dealing with somebody who is missing 80% of their stomach, and then they start marathoning or cycling, it's very, very difficult for them to eat the amount of calories that an unaltered person, marathoner or cyclist, would consume.
Yeah.
And so they have to be really smart, and that may mean that they have to supplement.
Yeah, and do shorter type, because our body has an hour and a half reserves in glycogen alone usually, so they can, just do shorter events. And obviously you can burn fat too, so it's not just what you eat. That might help with our performance. It's not just what you eat. So as far as a program, as far as you put people on a personal, is everybody the same when you put them on a program, or do they follow different diets depending on that person?
No, my programs, I follow a structure for one. So I do follow a structure, but everybody's, different. So, all their programs are a little bit different. If I have somebody who's marathoning, my program for them would be a little bit different. We would have to be smart about what we do in the program so that they can take in the calories to perform in their runs. Somebody who's more sedentary, my program for them would be a little bit more different.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's on a weekly basis and it's customized to them, but yet I still maintain, a similar structure when I am like programming meals. It's just when it comes to supplementation, it may be a little bit different, depending on, their exercise level and how active they are.
So I think that's what's important. And if anybody tuned into our show last week, my brother was on the show, and he talked about, instead of calling it diet, he talked about way of eating. And one thing, whether we talk about keto or carnivore diet or vegetarian diet, vegan diet, paleo diet, you got to find out what works for an individual, and everybody is different. So you got to find out what works for them, depending on activity level and, depending on timing of nutrients and stuff. So everybody's different. I think that's what's important, is that you have a personal diet for, everybody has to have a personal diet and find out what works for them. That's why it's important to educate people on the differences of them. So when you talk about, you mentioned the importance of the personal diets that you give to people. So how would the process start when somebody started with you? How would that work?
Well, when I start my process with clients, is I'm looking for sustainability. I'm looking at when they fill out their client profile, and I'm reading over their history, and I'm looking at everything, and I'm talking to this person. I'm looking at what's going to be sustainable in their life, what's going to come natural to them. And so that's my starting foundation for them. If I have a vegan, obviously I can't put meat in there, so I have to look at what comes natural to this person. How do they want to eat? If I have them eating broccoli 6 times a day and they hate broccoli, they're going to hate the process. I want them to love, I hate to say diet. I want them to love the process, because if they love the process, they're going to stick with the process. It's going to be a lifestyle change for them that they can see themselves doing, not just today or in a year, but 10 years down the road. The way that I eat the same whether I'm on vacation, I'm on a cruise ship, I'm at home. I try to maintain the same structure. So when I'm talking to clients, I have to dig deep and find out really what's going to be sustainable for them and keep them on track. And for them to say, you know what, Tosha, I can maintain this. 10 years down the road, I can see myself eating like this. That means I've coached the way that I should coach, because I've made it a lifestyle change for them.
So when do they usually get started on this process? Immediately after surgery, or do you wait a few months? Or
I have clients that are 2 weeks out, and I have clients that are 23 years out.
Oh, wow.
So I have a wide range of clients. I have marathoners, I have cyclists, I have bodybuilders, I have, people that are just like to get on the treadmill a couple days a week. I have clients that don't want to exercise. I have a vast majority of clients that I work with.
That's wonderful. So we mentioned about the average client can only eat 800 to 1,000 calories per day. What I like to clear up is that, honestly, the average American in a sedentary type job, from my experience of working with patients for weight loss, the average patient really only burns 1,200 calories a day if you have a sedentary job and you don't do any extra exercise. So really, that's not that much different. And that's why I think it's important to teach people how to eat normally and keep it into their regular lifestyle, because we have to live to eat, we have to, but we don't have to exercise. We don't have to exercise to live. So that's what I like to tell people, is that if you're going to pick one or the other, it's important to learn how to eat, because that's what keeps us alive. Whereas we don't have to stay alive we don't have to exercise to stay alive. So, and I remind them, let's eat. Our bodies were made eat to live. Don't live to eat. Because that's when we kind of overeat, when we just celebrate everything with food, and our bodies are meant to just have enough to sustain ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
Yesterday I happened to do a live Facebook video, and I was talking about that exact same thing. When I eat on a very structured basis, when I make my focus, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I focused on my protein. I've made a protein shake a priority, obviously, because typically we can't eat enough dense protein. So most of the time people do need a supplement and a shake, and maybe put in a snack in there. I stay right naturally. naturally about 12 to 1,300 calories when I've put my structure a priority, when I've put the big three, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a priority, and a snack. Now, if I'm just mindlessly grazing and going into my pantry and eating, I can rack up the calories. I mean, I could easily get, probably 2,000 calories in easily if I was just to go, dip into the kids' snack boxes and, eat some of their lunch things that I buy them. So when I'm really focused on, structure and my focus, I naturally stay, 12, 1,300 calories.
Well, and that's why it's important to have a plan, because if you don't, and you will definitely deviate from that plan, and it's really easy to overeat. We'll wrap this segment up, and we'll talk about it more in the next segment. You're listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham at AM 1470 KBSN Studios. Be part of the show. Call in 509-765-1470.
Creating memories that last forever. Miller's Fine Jeweler.
It happens a lot. One of our customers said, "I found a ring I liked on Pinterest. Can you make it for me?" Hi, it's Todd from Miller's Fine Jewelers. I told her, of course, just bring in the picture. We do it all the time. 30 years ago, there was no Pinterest, and Mr. Miller didn't have computer-aided design. Now we have both. Computer-aided design works great for making ideas into jewelry. If you already have the diamonds, colored stones, and precious metals, making something new is probably more affordable than you think. Maybe you have an heirloom piece that you would wear if they were designed just a bit differently. Bring them in. If you have a picture or rough idea of what you want, we can work with you on designing a great piece. At Miller's, we believe that jewelry should be seen and worn, not stored in a drawer. Start off the new year with memories from years gone by. Create your new ring, necklace, earrings, or bracelet at Miller's Fine Jewelers, downtown Moses Lake.
Are you raising a grandchild or another relative's child? If so, kinship programs may be available for your family. Kinship care is the full-time care of children by relatives. It occurs informally when children are not involved with the public child welfare system, and formally when public child welfare agencies are involved in placing children with relatives. The Kinship Caregiver Support Program can help with children's needs incurred by grandparents or other relatives when children come to live with them, as well as after the initial period. These programs can assist with food, clothing, basic needs, school and youth activities, energy, utility, and rental assistance, counseling, and transportation. Kinship Care maintains family, cultural, and community ties. It's the oldest form of family preservation and a safety net for children whose parents are unable or unwilling to care for them. To learn more or find a support group, contact Aging and Adult Care at 766-2568, extension 326, or access the Kinship Navigator Program at aaccw.org.
Honestly provocative talk radio on the Lars Larson Show.
Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders wants everything to be free, but you wouldn't believe what the bill comes to. Medical care is going to be free in the Bernie Sanders presidency. Also energy. Oh, and jobs, they're going to go away, but you won't have to buy anything because the government will be buying everything for you. The bill comes to $57 billion. How are we going to pay for all that? Oh, I know. We're going to tax the rich.
Weekday afternoons at 3 on KPSN.
Hello, and welcome back to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. We're in the studio with Tosha Stafford, expert on bariatric and weight loss. So we will continue. If you weren't with us first couple segments, we will continue. Tosha wants to talk a little bit about regain and something called transfer addiction with bariatric. So Tosha, go ahead.
Yep. So one of the things that I want to stress is, having a really good support system, not just with your bariatric peers, but also counselors, psychologists, etc., to have a really good support system, because regain is very prevalent in the bariatric community. There's not one person that I haven't met that either tells me that I don't look like a bariatric, okay, or that somebody that they know had bariatric surgery and has regained all their weight back. I hear kind of both sides of it. Regain is very prevalent in the bariatric community because people ultimately quit following the rules. They quit focusing on the big three, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They quit putting protein as a focus. They start eating around their stomach capacity. So they're eating what we call slider foods. Those are the high calorie foods that you can get in small quantities. So it's very prevalent. Transfer addiction is very prevalent in the bariatric community as well. The top two being shopping and alcohol.
So define for me, as you did during the break, what transfer addiction is.
Well, transfer addiction ultimately is, before, our go-to, our way to cope would be food. And when you don't have that anymore, then what do? If exercise hasn't been part of your routine, then what do? So then, excuse me, most people will ultimately transfer a debt and they'll start doing things to cope. And a lot of that is, spending money shopping. It could be alcohol. There's, I'm sure there's drug use, so that's what a transfer addiction is. It's you transferred from the food over to something else.
Right. And that's not uncommon in, me being a pharmacist, it's uncommon in the pharmaceutical industry either when, somebody goes off opioid addiction and they get addicted to something else. That's not uncommon. So I'd never heard that called transfer addiction, and I like that term. So thank you for educating me. So let me go a little bit into we're going to talk a little bit about hormones and weight loss, and I'm going to go a little bit into my story. So first of all, one thing I want to say is that, I appreciate you for coming out, Tosha, and if you guys haven't looked at her before and after pictures, please go to my Facebook and look at her before and after pictures. It's an amazing transition, and it's wonderful that she has done so well helping so many patients. So I appreciate that, Tosha, and I'm sure listeners and viewers do. So in 2009, I was struggling with my weight, and I struggled with my weight on and off through after college, basically, and I had different kinds of. I'd lose weight and I'd gain it back, and in 2009, I decided that we were doing what's called the HCG diet in our pharmacy. And basically what it is it's you take a medication. It's nothing new. It's been around. Dr. Simonson had it back in the 40s or 50s with his patients. And it's a hormone that you use to help maintain lean body mass. So while you take it, you're on a low-calorie diet, and you maintain lean body mass without losing. So you don't lose body mass, and it helps you burn fat. So it's a high protein type diet, very low calorie, and you only do it for a month, and then your body kind of needs to reset if you want to do another round. Anyway, in 2009, I decided I had hypertension, I had, which is also known as high blood pressure, I had high cholesterol, and of course they wanted to put me on medications, and I just didn't want to go on chronic medications for those diseases. So I ended up doing the diet in 2010, and I lost 26 pounds the first month, ended up losing a total of about 60 pounds over 4 months. And I have maintained my weight loss. The thing I like about that diet is kind of what you're talking about, is you eat mostly real foods. So you can go on a cruise, you can go out to dinner, you can eat at home, you can go to any grocery store. You're not buying somebody's special boxed foods where you have to eat their special foods, which I'm not a fan of, because then when you stop eating their foods, you don't know how to eat normally. So that's what I liked about this diet. And so anyway, I did end up, when I actually felt better, I had knee pain, I had foot pain, all that stuff went away. And when I started feeling better, I could actually throw some exercise in the mix, and I'm so glad I did, because it changed lives around me. And I think that's one thing that you might recognize, when you might or may not recognize, about how your family models what you do. And I had a son that was overweight, and he was just following my habits. So, and he ended up losing, a few years later, he ended up losing 40 pounds, and now he's just incredible. Works out 6 days a week, weighs all of his food. He eats so healthy. I'm a little bit envious, not really, but kind of. So anyway, that was my weight loss. Go ahead, Tosha. You want to say something?
No, I think it's fantastic. The scary part after bariatrics is entering a gym. So I encourage everybody, if you are in a gym and you see a heavy set person, they may be starting their bariatric journey. is to really support them, because that is a big fear among bariatrics, is going to a gym and really being made fun of. So I would encourage everybody, if you see that heavyset person, they may just be starting their journey, to become a supporter of theirs, because it does mean a lot and it keeps us motivated.
Yeah, encourage them. That's the best place they should be, is in a gym. It's better than being at home on the couch. So absolutely, thank you for that tip. So talking about the HCG and my history. So another thing is that common question we get with bariatric surgery is, after the fact, with hormones, and how does hormone affect weight loss? Do you want to go ahead and talk about that a little bit, Tosha?
I'm just starting my hormone journey. So I've actually tested perfect up until this past year. My thyroid now is kind of still in normal range. So my primary would always tell me that I'm falling within normal range. I actually ended up finding somebody in North Idaho who specializes in hormones, and she wanted to see me in optimal range. And so she put me on thyroid medication. So I'm just starting this journey. And then my testosterone was testing low. So I'm just starting to where I'm kind of starting to enter into going into the premenopausal stages.
Yep.
I'm just at the very, very, very start of it. So, Shawn, maybe you can talk more about this one.
Yeah, so, hormone replacement at our pharmacy, at Mosaic Professional Pharmacy, we've been doing that for 20 plus years, and we're kind of recognized as experts across the Pacific Northwest in it. Janet knows a lot about it, and I know a lot about it because we've dealt with so many doctors and patients. And hormone is a very generic term because it's a broad term. So we use it when we talk about hormones. We don't define it, but we should. But thyroid is a hormone, of course, and thyroid is not something that necessarily is affected as much by menopause, and it can usually affect people when they're younger. And I like that you found a doctor that specializes in hormone replacement, because we see it all the time, and we have doctors that we refer patients to that are specially trained in it, because there's a difference between being normal and being optimal. And it is just a fact, as we age, whether it be thyroid hormone or whether it be testosterone, progesterone, our estrogens, estradiol, what have you, they decline as we age. So thyroid usually is one of the first ones. And without an optimal thyroid, you will have low energy, weight gain. You can have signs of feeling cold, cold hands, cold fingers, loss of hair. Those are all signs of low thyroid symptoms. So typically also what's important, though, is that you get your testosterone checked, because low testosterone symptoms mimic low thyroid symptoms. So testosterone helps for energy, helps for mood, helps for depression, helps to maintain lean body mass, helps for metabolism. So testosterone is very important also. Now, from our experience, what normally happens with women is, they get in their, every woman's different, but in their late 30s, early 40s, and you start seeing declines of usually progesterone and testosterone. So typically when we think of women, we think of only estrogen, but testosterone is very, very important in women. Testosterone is not just for men. Women make up estrogen, need testosterone and make it up also. They just don't make up as much as men. So it's important to replace those so they can maintain lean body mass, have optimal bone health. Testosterone is good for bone density. All those things are important long term. So, and it's important that you see a provider like you found that doesn't want you to be normal, but wants you to be optimal. Because what's normal, when you think about some of those normal symptoms or those in the normal lab numbers, a lot of times those normals are from, thousands or millions of patients that were already sick. So those normal numbers, it was normal for them to be sick. So it's not an optimal level. So that's what the importance is, the importance of hormone balancing long term. Now, so maintaining your metabolism, maintaining lean body mass, all those things are important if you want to maintain a healthy body weight and be able to keep the weight off.
Mm-hmm. And, for me, I had to be my own advocate. I really did. And, I was fortunate that you guys were friends on my Facebook page when I was talking about my hormones and gave me some additional advice to kind of start asking some questions. And that's how I ultimately, with my primary, I knew something was going on because I wasn't feeling my normal self. I was more tired. I just wasn't feeling myself anymore. And so I had done my original blood work with my primary, but I was told I was in normal range. But then I asked about my history, and what was happening is I was still falling in normal range, but I was declining every single year.
Exactly.
And so I said, okay, I want to go to somebody who more specializes in women's health. And that's when I found Jan at Prairie Family Medicine in North Idaho, and she specializes in it, and she's wonderful. And she said, you know what, Tosha, I want to see you in optimal range. I want you feeling back to, who Tosha was before you kind of started feeling just like things weren't quite going smoothly for you. Yeah. And so now I'm just in my stages of it. My thyroid is now testing an optimal. My testosterone is still falling low, and so we're trying to get that, that dosage up and then up to optimal levels as well.
Yep. Jan Nelson is an ARNP in Coeur d'Alene, and we've worked with her for many years now. She's a great provider. So and unfortunately, a lot of times you had a baseline, so you had a history of what your thyroid levels were, maybe not what your testosterone levels were, your other hormone levels, but that's why I like to educate patients and let them know that they need to get a baseline early on. So later on, when somebody says that your hormones are normal, well, they weren't the same as they were 2 years ago, or 5 years ago when I was feeling great. So that's why it's important to have optimal levels and to have baselines. So get your hormones checked, people. Get them checked early, even if you think it's not. Even if you think it's early, your doctor said it's early. And I like what you said about you are your own advocate. That's why we have a radio show. That's why I've written a book, because we need to educate and empower patients, because that's what they don't know necessarily, that they're their own best advocates. So in the next couple of minutes, Tosha, we got to wrap this up. What would you like us to know? How do we get a hold of you? Some parting words, and how do we get a hold of you? How do people get a hold of you?
I am the founder of berryfit.com, so you can go to berryfit, berifit.com, and you can contact me through my website. I'm also on Facebook at Tosha Stafford, or through my business page, which is also Berryfit Fitness and Nutrition.
Okay. So are there any parting words you'd like to say? Are you glad that you went through this surgery?
I am. I would do it all over again.
Okay. All right. Well, that about wraps up our show. We're going to wrap it up. You are listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham at the AM 1470 KBSN studios in Moses Lake. We will see you next Monday.
Christmas is come and gone, and chances